Yes, admittedly, without the one comic that was supposed to be out originally, but now I guess it was moved to another patch, it was a little bit of a slower week for League of Legends. However, that does not mean it was not eventful, because pretty much out of nowhere, there is one thing that kinda overtook the entirety of League of Legends, and it happened to be a horse. Now, of course, this is tied to the fact that over in the East there is the Chinese New Year. And this time around, they are celebrating the Year of the Horse. Now, I didn't know this, but just about every year, whenever it comes to this time, PBE just gets bloated. Because Riot is shoving all of those patches into just one deploy. And so, not only did PBE have one skin line that is themed around the East, but also a second one. On top of which, besides the skins, there was also an extra drop. And that's the one we'll talk about later. But first, let's see why the horse in general is now everywhere. So it all started with the Firecracker skins, which are already out. It was mentioned that this is gonna be a new take on the old Firecracker skin line, which, to be fair, it is pretty close to the old one, it's just more, new. And so I wouldn't say there was too much innovation happening here. However, the champions who got a skin in this skin line work really well. Of course, the one that's getting the most attention is Seraphine. Partially that could be because people do joke about the Seraphine mains a bit. However, this time, the skin for Seraphine just looks great. Of course, just like it is the case for every one of her skins, the music here is different. It is no surprise that it is gonna be traditional Chinese. But a cool new detail here is the fact that the stage is now blinking. Yes, that is not performance effects, I believe the stage is alive. Anyway, all the spells are themed around firecrackers and fireworks. And so her Q is a big firework explosion. Her W is the nice shield that actually spreads the music around. Also, the heal itself triggers some fireworks. Her E sends forward a couple of the dancing lions. And the ultimate just shoots forward more fireworks. And so while thematically it is quite simple, because Seraphine is all about spells, well, all the spells are now fireworks. And it works. So next one in line, there is Yuumi. Now, it is interesting to see that Yuumi still has the dancing lion on her, even though she absolutely should have been themed around the waving cat. Because in her case, the fireworks are more in line with money and coins and good luck. And so, for example, her auto attacks are throwing money. Her Q then launches a firework, which looks amazing, and it really made me think, I would love a Mecha Yuumi, where she's actually launching nuclear missiles. That would be a fun idea. Then her W is all about spreading money and luck to your allies as you jump onto them, with the shield actually being a cute animated cat that winks. Yes, it moves. There was some proper effort put into this. After which her ultimate just spreads different symbols around. Of course, the outline of the ultimate is still a cat, but if you pay attention to the symbols, you'll see some lanterns and money and, of course, the good luck charms. After which we get to Poppy. Now, Poppy is an interesting one because her hammer is a drum, and so the auto attack sounds make sense.
Swinging from the heels.
In fact, it is these sounds that carry this skin. Other than that, her shield is a lucky coin, her Q erupts in an explosion of money, her W is a big barrier that stops everyone with the power of money, and her E is a dash that is actually propelled with fireworks. Lastly, her ultimate summons a big chunky wave of drums, and if she hits an enemy, she summons a horse. Finally, our first reference to the horse. After which, there is Ziggs, and Ziggs is exactly what you would expect. Instead of bombs, he throws fireworks. And so of course, not only is this part of his auto attacks, but also his Q. His W is a gold mine, literally. His E then spreads around a bunch of the tiny dancing lions that are actually bombs. Well, in this case, it is a wave of firecrackers on the ground. And his ultimate launches some big fireworks. However, because for Ziggs normally the VFX are all about the big explosion and nothing after that, you can see that the colorful fireworks explosions are actually very subtle. I assume Riot has done this to not change the shape of Ziggs's ultimate, and so you know, it is his ultimate. Anyway, then there is Caitlyn, and Caitlyn is interesting because she has the second highest views on her skin, meaning that people care about this one. And so, if we'll have a look at her auto attacks, you can see that she is shooting golden bullets, and whenever she hits a target, there is a tiny golden sparkle as an after effect. Then her Q is a big golden spiky something, after which her traps have the lucky charms in it instead of the classic cupcakes. So yes, she's luring you in with good fortune. After which her E is a net that is connected with coins. Lastly, there is her ultimate, which marks the enemy with a lantern above their head. I'll be honest, that might be one of the more underwhelming abilities. Although there is also a cool detail, whenever Caitlyn crits someone with this skin, she actually launches off fireworks. And lastly, here we also got a skin for Ashe, which was originally previewed in the teaser. And so Ashe's arrows are actually quite normal in this skin, although at least the bow glows with fireworks, and in fact the bow itself is a horse. After this, her W actually spreads fireworky arrows around. Her E is then a big celebratory explosion of fireworks, which also reveals a horse, not to mention that she actually shoots out a flying horse. And her ultimate also reveals a horse in the explosion. Not to mention, the arrow itself is a giant arrow that's on fire. But with that, that's pretty much it for this batch. What is funny about this one is that if you have a look at the champions, we technically got 3 AD carries and 3 supports. Well, what a skin line. Anyway, this batch also included something else, and that's the something we'll have a look a little bit later. First, as I mentioned, the skin lines related to the celebrations in the East are not done yet. And so right after the Firecrackers, we are also getting the Petals of Spring. Now, this skin line was also teased in the previous Dev Talk, but also this skin line was worthy of its own cinematic trailer. And upon watching this, surprisingly a lot of people cared about the fact that Yasuo is cheating on Ahri. Anyway, the big hitter in this skin line is of course Lilia, who just got a legendary skin. And from the reactions, it seems like the Lilia mains are really happy. And they should be, because the entire theme of this skin is really good. And as people pointed out, yes, she is still Scottish despite having a Chinese skin. Anyway, one of the bigger selling points of this skin is the fact that her passive turns Lilia gold. It really makes it feel like you're playing as a golden myth that is on fire. But also, the spells themselves are really good. For example, her Q has all the snow around her with a little bit of the red branches of the blossoms. Her W then spawns a flower in a pile of snow. When her E lands on an enemy, it marks them with a spring branch. And her ultimate makes these branches bloom into a blossom. If you combine all of these with the snowy effect, it works really well. And so again, it seems like Lilia mains are really happy. After this there is Katarina, where in the cinematic, until she pulled out the daggers, no one knew it was Katarina. But here, even though her Q and her W and even her E are kinda fine, because outside of these she doesn't have a lot of spell effects, it is all carried by the dagger that actually sticks to the ground. That one looks amazing and it paints a little bit of a snowy environment around it. Of course, after she picks it up, she spawns a little bit of snow and a little bit of crimson around her. That's totally the crimson of the flowers. And her ultimate spreads frost around. In fact, that ultimate looks more like Lysandra. Outside of that, it's all pretty cool. Then there is a skin that no one expected, and that is Jace. So yes, Jace also got a skin here, and in fact the two forms he has reference either the blossoms or the snow, so yes, it is smart. But the specific abilities still combine both of those. For example, the blasts from the cannon still have the snowy effect with the flowery core, and all the hits with the hammer still spread snow around. Also, a fun thing to note is the fact that the gate actually has 2 branches on the side that are connected with the snowy magic. But that's pretty much it. After all, besides the basic abilities, Jace doesn't have anything that would be too impactful. And so next, there is Camille. At this point, Camille is exactly what you would expect. All the slashes are snowy with a little bit of flowers in the middle. In fact, her first hit on the Q is more flowery and the second one is more snowy. But I would say that her W is really cool with the sweep, because the sweep actually moves snow in that direction. So it almost gives you a little bit of interactivity from the environment. And then yes, her grappling hooks are frosty with the flowery red line. Though most importantly, there is also her ultimate, which does spawn a frosty area. But what is weird is that the texture of the area is really low res. I wonder if that is because the texture for the area has to be a big circle and so there is just not enough budget for it. But I would also like to mention that could be theoretically fixed with a UV mapping. That area can be split into thirds, so what if you just make 1/3, copy it over and make it high res? It's also possible it's just a bug. It could be bugged. And then there is also the cheater Yasuo, where I would say this might be one of the best skins of this skin line. That is, not counting Lilia because she's legendary. And that's because his slashes and her Qs are very vibrant. While the snow is still there, the flowery red colors are far more vibrant here. And so the tornado actually looks like it is on fire in the middle of snow. The wind wall also paints out a landscape because you have a snowy landscape with 2 trees on the sides. Then the dash brings a little bit of snow with it, there's nothing too special there. And it is unfortunate that his ultimate doesn't have any cool effects while he's in the air, but then when he slams down, he does spawn some flowers. So there's that. Finally, there is one more thing that I have to point out about this skin, and those are the chromas. Because while the chromas don't really change the theme in any significant way, they absolutely give the core skin different vibes. And so, actually good job on these. But that's pretty much it for our chunky wave of Eastern skins. But as I mentioned, that's not it for the horse. Because you see, among all the skins, right now, live on the live client, there is also an icon which you have to find by searching for accessories and icons, and there it is. A horse. I have no idea why this happened, but apparently people really like this horse. It could be the style, it could be the fact that it is a horse, it could be the fact that the horse is staring into your eyes. But there is just far too many people using this horse as their icon now, and no one has any idea why that happened. But very quickly, before this horse eats our lives, there is one more thing we have to talk about, and that is the fact that, indeed, there is a new mythic variant. Now, this is a new kind of a skin that Riot is working on. They tried this out with Lucian and Nami, and there, I hate to say it, it worked quite well. And so yes, Aurelian Soul got a new mythic variant for the porcelain skin, which means it is a new pseudo gacha skin. That's right, these are the filler gacha pulls that you'll go for if you're not going for Viego or whatever is not an exalted skin. Now, just like it happened with Lucian and Nami, this skin is just in a big gray area. And that's simply because, in order to make the skin, Riot took the original legendary and they did in fact upgrade it. The issue is that, yes, they are reusing previous assets, meaning that they are taking away from the uniqueness of the original legendary skin. And it sucks that they are turning this into a really cool skin, which everyone admits, yes, this is a good skin. And that is because, of course, it is still a gacha skin. So it is something really awesome that everyone wants, but no one wants to get because goddamn it is expensive. And so no one can agree whether this one is good or bad. Most people just dislike it. And so that's how this Year of a Horse package is wrapped. It's wrapped with Aurelian showing us his horses. But yes, I didn't think this PBE cycle would be so chunky with all the Eastern skins. And now everyone is waiting for what's gonna be happen in February and March, because you know what's coming next. There's supposed to be Valentine's Day, but nothing popped up on PBE. And now, a lot of Seraphine mains are actually mad there was no Valentine skin for her.